My parents skipped my wedding because I got married before my perfect sister. Now their perfect family image is finally crumbling. I got married 8 months ago. Everyone came except my younger sister Molly and my parents. My parents' decision to skip was surprising, but I wasn't entirely shocked by my sister's absence. We've never really gotten along. Let me give you some background on our family dynamics. I can't completely blame my parents for always favoring my sister. Throughout her life, Molly has been exceptionally good at almost everything. She was the center of attention in every room. As soon as she could walk, she was winning spelling bees, science fairs, and talent shows. Elementary school class president, high school valedictorian, prom queen. Tall, slender, and attractive, she pursued modeling while in college before focusing on her business degree. She got her first modeling job during her sophomore year. I still remember my parents throwing a lavish party to celebrate. Her first professional headshot was framed and hung in our living room, directly above the fireplace. It's still there today. The same year, I earned my degree in computer science. My parents merely mumbled, "Well done," and went back to planning Molly's next photo shoot. She climbed the corporate ladder immediately after graduating, landing a job at a prominent company. At 30 years old, she already has a corner office, a company car, and a senior executive title. Meanwhile, I work as a mid-level software developer for a respectable tech company. I'm proud of my work. It's a decent career, but it's not the kind of job that makes parents brag in front of family. I'm also bigger and shorter than my sister. My mother made cruel comments about my appearance, signed me up for workout classes I didn't want to attend, and put me on diets constantly when I was growing up. She would say things like, "Molly never struggles with her weight," or "You could look as nice as your sister if you just put in a little more effort." By high school, I had learned to ignore these remarks, but they left marks. Over the years, I've accepted these differences. I finally came to terms with the fact that my parents never took as much delight in my accomplishments as they did in Molly's. What choice did I have? I tried to earn their approval for years. I took the classes they recommended. I joined the clubs they encouraged. I even attempted modeling briefly. A failure my sister never lets me forget, but nothing was ever enough. I was simply the second daughter. They were completely enamored with my sister. I gave up trying to impress them sometime in my mid-20s. I focused on creating my own life, growing professionally on my own terms, forming bonds with people who respected me for who I am. Honestly, things got better after that. Knowing my parents were always concerned about appearances, I kept our interactions superficial to avoid conflict. During mandatory holiday dinners and family gatherings, I would nod and smile while they raved about Molly's latest job, lover, or vacation spot. They didn't seem to notice my emotional distance. They had Molly to swoon over. Then at a tech conference, I met my husband through a mutual friend. He noticed me, actually saw me. Unlike my family, he liked my dry sense of humor, my ability to code, and yes, even my body type. From the very beginning, he never suggested I should change or compared me to anyone else. He proposed after 4 years of dating. We were alone at home, enjoying takeout and our favorite TV show in the background. It was perfect. I told my parents I was engaged last year. My first clue should have been their response. There was no congratulations, only silence. My mother then asked if I was sure I wanted to jump right in and suggested I might want to improve my physical condition before the wedding. My father didn't say much at all. During the engagement party, my husband noticed their odd reaction, which I was too anxious to fully comprehend at the time. They huddled over my mother's phone in a corner for most of the evening. My husband later told me he had heard them talking to Molly on the phone. She was clearly crying. They were saying things like, "This wasn't the plan," and "We never expected Rebecca to get married first." There were minor setbacks during wedding planning. Despite not even being engaged at the time, my mother had already created multiple wedding Pinterest boards for Molly and was not interested in helping me choose a dress or venue. When I selected my dress, a simple yet elegant A-line gown that made me feel lovely, my mother merely remarked that it was practical and suited my figure. My future mother-in-law, who treated me like the daughter she never had, ended up helping me with most of the preparations. I carefully reviewed the guest list with my husband to ensure no one was overlooked before sending out both digital and paper wedding invitations. I am certain my parents received theirs because the digital invitations included red receipts. I called, texted, and emailed them multiple times after realizing they hadn't RSVP'd. My messages were either ignored or met with evasive responses about being too busy and needing to check their schedules. I couldn't waste too much energy worrying about it. I was too busy preparing for the wedding. My in-laws were incredibly helpful. They assisted with everything from seating arrangements to floral arrangements. Even at the lovely bridal shower hosted by my husband's sister, the painfully obvious absence of my own family was never brought up. My parents weren't there. The wedding day itself was beautiful. We held a laid-back afternoon celebration in a garden setting. Everyone said we looked so happy and in love. But there were moments when their absence felt like a physical ache, like when I saw the empty front row seats, or during the father-daughter dance that I couldn't have. After the honeymoon, I sought answers. When I finally reached my parents on the phone, my mother launched into a lengthy tirade. They claimed they were deeply hurt because they had never received a formal invitation. She accused me of being careless, said she had always wanted to help organize her daughter's weddings. She couldn't understand why I would leave them out of such an important occasion. I was confused. I knew we had sent them both types of invitations. During the call, I checked our records. The digital invitations showed they had been opened. Even the physical invitations delivery was confirmed. I didn't confront them about their attempts to gaslight me. I just said I was sorry for the error and hung up. Later, my husband brought up several incidents that demonstrated their true intentions. The way they appeared surprised rather than delighted when we announced our engagement. The way they kept making excuses not to help with wedding planning. He hadn't mentioned these observations earlier because he didn't want to add to my anxiety during the process. But in hindsight, the pattern was clear. The idea that I, the less successful daughter, was getting married before their beloved Molly was too much for them to bear. Their behavior simply confirmed what I had always suspected, but resisted believing. I would never be able to compete with my sister in their eyes. The most painful part was realizing that even my wedding day, which should have been a celebration of love and new beginnings, had turned into another front in their endless war to preserve their perfect family image, with Molly at its center. Molly recently got engaged to someone she's been dating for a year, according to family members I've spoken with. My parents are openly expressing their excitement about planning an elaborate wedding for her. They're already boasting about securing upscale venues and luxury gowns. My mother is taking Molly to private fittings at high-end boutiques. All the mother-daughter time I was never given. Relationship with my parents. Their behavior during my wedding finally made it clear that I would never be sufficient for them, regardless of what I did. Their absence at my wedding is no longer the most difficult part. It's coming to terms with the fact that I never had the kind, encouraging parents I always wanted. I'm focusing on creating a life with someone who genuinely appreciates me for who I am. First update since my last post. Weeks ago, a lot happened. I ultimately decided to speak with my parents face-to-face about their actions at my wedding and their current accusations that I ruined my sister's special day. After reading encouraging remarks from people who understood my situation, I felt it was time to put everything on the table. When they began texting me about their tarnished family history, my parents quickly started making accusations. They said I was jealous of Molly and had planned the entire thing. I did something I had never done before. I agreed with them, but not in the way they expected. Instead of defending myself as I usually would, I said, "You're right, I'm jealous. Not of Molly's career, not of her accomplishments, not of her appearance. I'm jealous of the unwavering love and support you've shown her, the love you never even made an effort to show me." There was a pause on the line. My mother then began claiming that I was exaggerating and that they had always treated us equally. Something broke inside me at that moment. Feelings that had been buried for years came flooding out. I told them about each birthday when my accomplishments were overshadowed by Molly's latest success. About how my mother canceled my high school graduation dinner because Molly had a modeling callback. About how Molly's prom outfit cost more than an entire year of my college textbooks. I continued, despite my father's attempts to cut me off by accusing me of exaggerating. I talked about watching them spend years planning my sister's imaginary wedding while showing no interest in my own. I told them how painful it was to see my parents' seats empty at my wedding and how my mother-in-law had to help me with everything, from wedding preparation to dress shopping. Their reaction was instructive. Rather than accepting any of my points, they flipped it on me. "Why did you never speak up if you felt this way?" As if I hadn't tried to talk to them for years. My father went on to say that by discussing these feelings with our family members, I was being unjust and spiteful. My mother said something that ultimately clarified everything. "We never imagined you'd go to such lengths as to try to ruin Molly's wedding out of spite, but we always knew you were insecure about her success. This is not how we raised you." I became aware that they couldn't even hear me. They believed that their behavior and my emotions had nothing to do with the entire situation. It was all about Molly's reaction. They were more worried about her impending nuptials than the hurt they had caused me, even during this discussion about their absence from my wedding. For the first time in my life, I didn't try to make things better. I didn't backtrack or apologize. I expressed my thoughts to them directly. "You're right about one thing. You did raise me. You instilled in me the belief that I would never measure up. That Molly's accomplishments would always be more significant than mine. That upholding your perfect family image was more important than my feelings." I paused. "But you also taught me that I deserve better than this. That was something you didn't mean to teach me." Before my father could speak, there was a long pause. He finally spoke in a cool, collected tone. "Maybe it's time for us to stop acting like we're bad parents since you've already determined that we are. You obviously take pleasure in seeing us suffer. Your family. We assumed you would help resolve this issue, but it's clear that you've made your own decisions." My mother delivered the last blow. "Perhaps you simply couldn't cope with not being the center of attention, even though we always tried to treat you both fairly. That's not our fault, Rebecca. You made the decision to play the victim." I didn't argue. Why would it matter? Everything I had been saying had just been validated by them. They were unable to admit their involvement in any of this, even at this final discussion. I just said goodbye and hung up. I was surprised to feel relieved after the call. Tears were shed, to be sure, but they weren't the frantic, heartbreaking ones I remembered from my early years. They were liberating tears. For the first time, I had expressed everything I needed to say without holding back or feeling guilty about how I felt. Later, my husband saw me gazing at the sunset from our back porch. He sat next to me and held my hand without saying anything. "They're never going to change, are they?" I asked him after a while. "No," he said, squeezing my hand. "But you have, and that's what counts." He was right, I have changed. The young woman who frantically tried to earn her parents' approval is no longer there. They no longer need to validate the person who walked out of that last conversation. Although acknowledging that my parents will never be the people I need them to be is painful, it's not as painful as holding out hope that they would change. For the first time, I don't really care what happens with my sister's wedding or the family drama. I've had my say. Now they have to deal with whatever comes up. The most peculiar thing, I feel as though a burden I've carried my entire life has finally been lifted. It's not the happy ending I had hoped for with my parents, but perhaps it was the one I needed. The ability to stop striving for love that should have come naturally. 3 days have passed since my confrontation with our parents, and things have taken a surprising turn. Molly decided to get involved in the drama, but her strategy failed horribly. My sister sent me a carefully crafted message yesterday morning. She had developed a condescending tone over the years, and it was evident in her text. "What you said to your parents was completely inappropriate. They have helped us through every stage of our lives and given us everything. You cannot simply blame them for being bad parents because you're insecure about the decisions you've made in life." She continued the message with her typical blend of moral superiority and subtle jabs. "I understand that your wedding wasn't exactly what you had envisioned, but that doesn't mean you should try to ruin mine. There's nothing wrong with wanting a celebration that honors those of us who have put in a lot of effort to meet cert standards. Not everything needs to be a contest, Rebecca. I didn't bother to answer. I've discovered that engaging with her merely provides her with more ammunition. After years of putting up with her manipulative behavior, I just blocked her number instead. Molly has never been one to tolerate being ignored, so I assumed that would be the end of it. My husband called me at work a few hours later. He was laughing so hard he could barely speak. Molly was apparently unable to reach me directly, so she found his personal number, probably through a common acquaintance, and sent him a string of texts outlining the precise reasons why our sisterly relationship has never been good. She began her initial communication in a sufficiently professional manner. As Rebecca's sister and someone who cares deeply about our family's well-being, I feel compelled to reach out. But it soon devolved into her actual motivations. She informed my husband that he had an obligation to help me behave in a more appropriate manner because he was the new man in Rebecca's life. The messages became increasingly patronizing. Family dynamics are complex, she told my husband, a professional software architect with an advanced degree, adding that someone with Rebecca's sensitivity might not understand the bigger picture. She advised him to help me see reason before I irreparably harmed family relationships. Her attempt to play on what she believed to be his social climbing impulses was the true kicker. She wrote, "Surely you understand that maintaining good relationships with successful family members like myself could be beneficial for your future. Rebecca's behavior is only hurting her own prospects, and by extension, yours." Having always been able to see through Molly's facade, my husband thought her attempt at manipulation was hilarious. He particularly appreciated her presumption that her corporate rank or the prospect of networking opportunities would somehow impress him. In his own words, "She really doesn't know me at all, does she?" We went over the messages together when I got home that night. Instead of feeling offended or upset, I was laughing with my husband. Seeing Molly's deceptive methods exposed, particularly when they were aimed at someone who was completely impervious to them, was liberating. I learned something significant about my sister from this encounter. She is still that insecure person who needs to tear others down in order to feel superior. Despite all her achievements and success, nothing has changed. It's clear how little she understands about healthy relationships. She believed she could control me by manipulating my husband. When her direct approach failed, she swiftly turned to trying to use my husband against me. That was the most revealing aspect. She used to do the exact same thing in high school. She attempted to turn my friends against me when she couldn't bully me directly. Different decade, same strategies. With this fresh perspective, I now understand that Molly's actions went beyond simple sibling rivalry throughout our early years. She made a concerted effort to maintain her status as the favorite child, always comparing herself to me, always telling our parents and me how much better she was. She had to overshadow whatever I accomplished. She had to point out my shortcomings to everyone I befriended. My response to her games is different now. Her messages would have caused me to spiral into self-doubt 10 years ago. I would have been upset and hurt 5 years ago. Today, I'm simply tired of the drama and find her blatant attempts at manipulation amusing. My husband's response was perfect. Rather than getting embroiled in her drama, he merely replied, "Thank you for your concern about Rebecca's well-being. As her husband, I'm focused on supporting her happiness, not managing her behavior. I think it's best if you direct any future concerns to Rebecca directly. Have a nice day." Molly sent one last message after not receiving the desired response. "I see she's poisoned you against the family too. Say I didn't try to help when this all blows up in your faces." Ironically, Molly's attempt to interfere has further strengthened my resolve to keep my distance from the destructive dynamics of my family. Nothing has changed, as evidenced by her messages to my husband. She is still the same cunning person who feels the need to control every narrative and who perceives any departure from her perfect family script as a threat. Knowing that her attempts at persuasion were so completely unsuccessful is perhaps the most pleasant aspect of the entire incident. She succeeded in bringing my husband and me closer together rather than causing us to drift apart. Totally unconcerned by her fears of social repercussions, we joked about her texts and planned a weekend getaway that evening. I've come to understand that true family isn't about maintaining facades or dictating stories. It's about standing together, laughing together, and supporting one another when someone tries to manipulate you, even when that someone is your own sister. I'm more certain than ever that I'm better off keeping a safe distance from Molly's wedding drama instead of getting sucked into my family's never-ending power struggles. My husband and I have decided to focus on creating our own happiness. Success is said to be the best form of retaliation, but I'm coming to realize that real success isn't about impressing people. It's about accepting your choices and surrounding yourself with people who encourage rather than impede your own growth. I feel more successful than ever by that measure. 2 weeks have passed since my sister's failed attempt to manipulate my husband. Things have taken even more unexpected turns. The situation is getting worse for my parents despite their desperate attempts to repair their reputation. I found out through family ties that my parents have been on a campaign to control the narrative. They have been calling each relative separately and accusing me of spreading malicious lies because I'm jealous of Molly's perfect wedding. They claim I'm just resentful because her wedding will be far more sophisticated and beautiful than mine was. According to their most recent version of events, I purposely left them out of my wedding so I could play the victim. It's funny that they still live in the same house they've owned for 30 years and have had the same email addresses for decades, but they're claiming I sent their invitation to an old email address and an old physical address. The good news is that their attempts to limit the damage are failing miserably. Our family members don't believe them. Actually, a number of relatives have shared their personal accounts of my parents' history of favoritism. According to one aunt, my mother had previously engaged in similar antics at family weddings, always trying to ensure that Molly was the center of attention. The way my extended family has reacted to my parents' manipulation is the most fulfilling development. Important family members, some of whom were expected to have significant roles in the event, have stopped supporting Molly's wedding. The exclusive venue they were able to secure through family connections may no longer be available. Even a family friend's luxury garment business has unexpectedly experienced scheduling conflicts. At a family gathering last weekend, things reached a breaking point. It seems that when someone innocently asked about my wedding pictures, my mother became upset. She launched into a defensive tirade about how I had changed after getting married and was attempting to destroy the family. Her tantrum backfired. Several relatives who were unaware of the circumstances were stunned, and the incident further damaged my parents' well-maintained reputation. It's especially ironic that my parents' frantic efforts to maintain their perfect family facade are the reason it's falling apart. Each time they try to justify their absence from my wedding, they end up revealing more about who they really are. People are becoming more aware of their deception the more they attempt to portray me as the villain. Family members are now picking sides after previously remaining impartial. Recently, even my father's brother, who had always kept quiet to maintain harmony, apologized for not speaking up sooner about how they treated me. He has decided not to attend any of Molly's wedding-related festivities with his family. I don't have to do anything about this. I haven't said a word. The truth is taking care of everything for me. Molly and my parents always end up revealing more of their destructive behavior when they try to twist the tale. It turns out that all those years of remaining silent and tolerating their treatment in an effort to keep the peace was really just enabling their actions. My husband said it in the best possible words. They constructed a facade of the perfect family over many years, but it was built on emotional manipulation and favoritism. Eventually, it was going to collapse. I'm doing better than ever personally. I no longer have to worry about attempting to win my parents' approval. The stress of managing Molly's emotions has subsided. I'm not concerned about upholding their perfect family image. For the first time in my life, I'm free. Sometimes the best response isn't taking action. It's just letting the truth speak for itself. I've had several family members reach out to me directly since the gathering. Most of them just want to hear my side of things. I tell them the same simple truth. My parents chose not to come to my wedding because I got married before Molly. That's not something I made up. That's what happened. One of my cousins told me that my mother has been leaving tearful voicemails for relatives, begging them to reconsider their decisions about Molly's wedding. Apparently, my parents are terrified that the guest list will shrink even further. The beautiful, lavish wedding they've been planning for years might end up being a fraction of the size they imagined. I almost feel sorry for them. Almost. But then I remember the empty chairs at my wedding. The father-daughter dance I never had. The years of feeling like I was invisible in my own family, and I don't feel sorry anymore. Molly has gone completely silent since her text exchange with my husband. No calls, no messages, no attempts to reach out through other people. I think she finally understands that her tactics won't work on me anymore. I'm not the desperate younger sister desperately seeking approval. I'm not the pushover she could manipulate. I'm someone who has finally accepted reality and moved on. My parents have stopped contacting me as well. Last I heard, they are fully focused on damage control. They're trying to salvage Molly's wedding and their reputation in the family. I wish them luck with that. But I won't be part of it. I've made a decision. I'm not going to Molly's wedding. Not out of spite. Not out of revenge. Simply because I don't belong there. I don't belong in a celebration that represents everything my parents valued more than me. I don't belong at an event where I would be the uncomfortable reminder of their failures. My husband supports this completely. He said, "Why would you go somewhere you're not truly welcome? We have our own family to celebrate now." He's right. We do. My mother-in-law called me yesterday. She didn't mention any of the family drama. She just wanted to know if we were coming over for dinner this Sunday. She said she was making my favorite dish. That's what a real mother does. She doesn't compare. She doesn't manipulate. She just loves. I've learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who stands beside you, who loves you without conditions. My parents never understood that. Molly never understood that. But I do now. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not sad. I'm just at peace. The burden I carried for 32 years is finally gone. I don't need my parents' approval. I don't need my sister's validation. I have a husband who adores me. I have in-laws who treat me like their own daughter. I have friends who chose me. And I have myself. The person I became despite everything. The person who survived. If my parents ever want to have a real relationship with me, one based on mutual respect and genuine love, I would consider it. But I'm not holding my breath. They've shown me who they are. I believe them. Molly is getting married next month. I heard through the grapevine that several more relatives have declined their invitations. The perfect wedding my parents envisioned is turning into a much smaller affair. I don't take any pleasure in that, but I don't take any responsibility for it either. This is the consequence of their own actions. They spent decades building a family dynamic based on favoritism and emotional manipulation. They shouldn't be surprised that people eventually noticed. As for me, I'm moving forward. My husband and I are talking about starting a family of our own. We're planning a vacation for our first anniversary. We're building a life together that has nothing to do with my parents or their drama. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in my life, I'm excited to find out. So that's where things stand. My parents are scrambling to save face. My sister is furious that her manipulation didn't work, and I'm sitting on my back porch, watching the sunset, with a man who loves me exactly as I am. I call that a win. Thank you to everyone who followed this story. Your support meant more than you know. Sometimes you need to see what true family support looks like from strangers you met online to understand what you've been missing. I'm going to keep living my life. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's happiness, and I finally have it.